So a little bit about the agenda today. We're going to talk about how we got started, a little bit about MarkLogic Server, our homegrown UI, the addition of Semaphore, some lessons that we learned, some things we want to do in the future, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So like I said, we're from ADM, formerly Archer Daniels Midland. And for those of you who don't know what ADM is, we're an agricultural manufacturing company. So we don't actually grow any crops, but we do buy a lot from farmers. And so we have a large transportation network as well. So trucks, trains, river barges, and then even like ocean-going vessels. But we take different agricultural products and process them into higher value products. So grains into flour, corn into oils, and even ethanol. So ADM by the numbers, we're the Fortune 50 company that most people have never heard of. These are our numbers from last year. Did about $85.5 billion in revenue last year. And then I'm going to turn it over to Eric to kick us off.
This is a quote from Juan Luciano, our CEO, from a few years ago, and basically the gist of it is, in any big organization like ours, someone may know a piece of information, but how does someone find that information or the repository where it's stored? So over time, business documents just seem to accumulate, and they get together and they multiply like rabbits. So even on my own laptop, a lot of times I know I have a document somewhere, but where is it? And if I had to do that in someone else's environment with their documents, I'd be completely lost. Then around 2017, the company had a reduction in force, which was largely driven by early retirements. And I think it's safe to say at one point we had 200 cumulative years of experience walk out the door one day. And we're with the research and development department specifically, so that's a lot of subject matter expertise being lost. So how do we capture that? So we had one director and one VP come together and say, hey, why don't we, as these people leave, we grab their laptops, we grab the hard drives out of their computers, and we plug that into something and find a way to search it. And so they looked around for a way to do that, and the solution that we finalized on was MarkLogic. Primarily because it's got integrated search features, so there's a lot of rich searching options available. You can do near searches, you can do Boolean logic. We could accommodate a wide variety of file types, and then because of MarkLogic, we could reshape the data so it can be consumed by standard SQL tools, and it was enterprise grade for scalability. So this is what our architecture looks like. It all starts with our data. Over here, which is coming from a lot of different directions. We started just pulling documents off the file system. We're now ingesting from Teams and SharePoint. We also ingest from our electronic lab notebook system. And we're also using a piece of cloud software called Benchling for our microorganism group. And we're ingesting experiments from there. So then we're using Apache NiFi for orchestration. And then we do content enrichment using Azure AI services and some other open source tools. When we started, that was called Azure Cognitive Services, but was rebranded a few years ago. But the APIs have not changed. We're even still using the same version of the APIs in some cases. So thinking from Ed's talk this morning, whether or not that's actually AI, I'll leave that up as an exercise to you. We're also using Progress Semaphore for PII detection and some other things, and Jonathan will talk more about that later. MarkLogic is our data store. We've made a search interface for users in Oracle Application Express, which is their rapid development low-code environment. mostly because that's just what we sort of over the years have standardized on R&D, so that was sort of the tool we had in our toolkit right away. And so that is what the users will actually interact with. So again, about our architecture, we've got our cluster, 3 nodes, 3 forests each. It's combined D&E nodes, so we just don't have the need to separate those out right now. As I said, we're using Apache NiFi for orchestration, Corb for batch processing, if you need to reprocess or make a change to 50,000 documents all of a sudden. Doing that in Query Console will time out. Technically, I believe that is a community project, and Mads Hansen, who just did the previous talk, I just want to say thank you. Then we use Azure AI services for things like image tagging, image and PDF, optical character recognition, and handwriting recognition. We use their speech-to-text feature for audio transcription, and then we use some open source tools like ImageMagick to generate thumbnails, and FFmpeg to extract audio from video. And this is sort of what our UI looks like. You can see we've got some basic search grammar, near, and, or, that sort of thing. And then thanks to MarkLogic, we've got search facets off to the side. We're ingesting a fairly wide variety of file types. We had 800 at last count. And so to add to the problem, these are binary documents. These are not like database records, as you would think. It's not an employee record. It's not a purchase item with a bunch of line items with it. They're basically almost completely unstructured. And they are coming from many different directions at once. And so the thing that makes this all possible is the MarkLogic document filter function, which extracts searchable text and metadata elements from these binary documents. And then so in our database, each binary document gets a corresponding XML document that contains the text and the metadata. And I apologize for showing you XML, but we're using the Data Hub envelope pattern, so everything is wrapped in an envelope item. There's headers, which contain all of the metadata that we've curated. And then there is an instance element that contains the searchable text and then the original uncurated metadata from the document filter. We started out small, but our database has grown to over about 5 million documents, which averages out to about 2,000 a day. We've got about 6.5 terabytes in our final database. It's a little bit harder to put a dollar value on the documents that are involved, like how much business value is there. But I did a quick look at just the PDF documents that we've got, which is about 16 million pages, and I figure if every page there involved someone either reading it or writing it for one page, took 1 minute, that comes out to about $36 million just in our PDF documents. As I said, we have a fairly wide variety of document types. At top is just a count of the number of documents we've got for each type. At the bottom is sort of the property document, that metadata document size, which is sort of a measurement of the amount of searchable text. And so as you can see, PDF is our biggest one in number of documents. We have a 2-part ingest and harmonization process, again, orchestrated by Apache NiFi. This is only a small fraction of our process right now. So the first thing that happens is we filter out unwanted documents by file type, file path, and their size. Like if something is in a folder named temporary internet documents, we just skip over it. And then we grab some base attributes from the original file. This will be like the creation date, the file type, the size. And then we assign a number of attributes based on its source. This will be like the permissions, the collections that it's going to be in. We construct a URI based on the original path and the file name. We run our image tagging service if it's an image. For PDFs, we just grab the number of pages. Occasionally that's useful. And then we ingest those documents and again, we're using the Data Hub pattern, so the Data Hub staging directory as a put to our documents endpoint plus a transform. And that's what runs the document filter function that grabs all that text. And then we create a log record just to keep track of what we've done. Then the harmonization step starts searching for ingested but unharmonized documents. That's done by a server-side JavaScript function. And that's where we sort of standardize all of that metadata and grab the ones that we want, and we store them in the header section of that XML document I showed. So for example, if a PDF has a piece of metadata called created by, we'll standardize that as author, and that becomes our metadata. That goes in to what we call basically the final database. And then after harmonization, we do a few additional things. If it's an image file, we generate a thumbnail that can be shown on the UI. We do a preliminary scan for personally identifiable information. The Copyright Clearance Center has a right find service that they provide, and we scan that to see if we have copyright permissions for a document. That's important for things like journal articles. Then we run Semaphore, which Jonathan will talk about. And then we'll run our OCR and our video transcription services. So we have a lot of multimedia files, and those are not generally very useful in and of themselves because basically all you have to go on is the file name and the path that it was found in, and most of the file names are something that came right off the camera, like image_1001.jpg. So unless you know the location of the image you're looking for, you're not going to find it. Azure has this service they call their tagging service, and that returns any number of predetermined tags plus a confidence level. This is a stock image of a bowl of chips, and you can see it came in with food and snack at high confidence. Bowl, mixture, and indoor are getting a little bit obscure. Dried fruit is incorrect because that would be healthy. And then those are added as metadata elements, and those become search facets. So someone could search for everything that is tagged as a snack, for example. One of the tags that comes back from the image tagging service is both text or handwriting. And those images are slated for optical character recognition later. We also do that for PDFs with small amounts of text. And this goes to a different Azure service for OCR. It's not exactly perfect because you notice this is just a product label of some sort. You got nutrition facts and then some narrative text in the middle. And the eagle eye people in you will notice that the text has been read here as curate started with a small group of passionate cholesterol 0 milligrams. So it didn't do so great with the 2 columns. The text does come back with a bounding box, so each piece of text gets you get the corners of where it came from. So we could maybe reconstruct that a little better, but we just haven't gone to that kind of trouble. We also have a problem with old PDFs that this is a scan of a printout of a patent. You can tell it's got some little image artifacts that came with the scan that I've circled. So this had no text that we could search over. So the document filter basically came back blank. I think it just had page 1, page 2, page 3. And so if a document has a small amount of text, which we call about 2,500 characters, it's considered blank, and we run it through OCR just to see if we can get something from it. And again, here we had the same sort of problem with the title and that first citation there being on the same line, getting mixed up in the text. So turning to security, we've got a fairly granular security model that we handle all of that in Active Directory just because that's pretty much what we use in the company for everything. So, and each new ingest gets an Active Directory security group created and a matching MarkLogic role. And then documents for that ingest source will get their read permissions set for that role. In Active Directory, we can create a hierarchy of groups if we want. And then after Semaphore classification for personally identifiable information, we have 2 categories, personal and sensitive. And if it gets detected as one of those, the existing read role is removed. That will get archived in the headers in case we need to go backwards. And then we can add a personal reader or a sensitive reader role, so that which are fairly locked down and only a few people can see those documents. If we had the MarkLogic Advanced Security option, we could actually overlap those roles, and we wouldn't need to remove the original ones, but we're not licensed for that right now. And still, unwanted documents can slip through. We have a feature in the UI that we call flagging. So each search hit has a flag icon next to it, and if you click on that, you get this little, whoops, you get this little modal dialog here, and then end users can flag and say why they think that document shouldn't be there. So what happens is that gets added to a flagged documents collection. It's removed from search results until it's actioned, and it sort of gets set aside for a super user or an administrator to review it and make a decision, keep or delete. And then we create a log record that is separate from the original document. And basically what that is for is if the administrator has decided, yes, we need to delete this document because it's personal or for some other reason, and we then re-ingest that data source, we don't accidentally re-ingest this document again. And so I'm going to turn things over to Jonathan, who's going to talk about our problem with personally identifiable information.
Alrighty, so PII. So with the large number of business documents that we started ingesting into MarkLogic, we started having numerous personal documents slipping into the database as well. And our crude keyword searching that we were doing after harmonization, it was missing personal documents, it was falsely flagging others. This was creating a lot of overhead and extra work for our super users having to go in and review these documents. And then we also had concerns over GDPR, works councils in Europe, and then the various laws within the United States about personal information in our database. So we went looking for a solution, and the solution that we came on was Progress Semaphore. So what is Progress Semaphore? I'm sure at this point all of you know, but it's a software suite that enables you to create and manage semantic models and classify your documents based on those models and any rules that you would create. And typically you can do that either by keyword frequency or keyword entity pairing or a combination of the two. And so some types of personal and sensitive information. Now personal documents are documents that we do not want in the database at all. Sensitive documents, however, they do have business value, but they need to be more eyes only. So some examples of personal information, right? So people's medical records, bank statements. As far as sensitive information, we were getting resumes, people's performance reviews, salary information. So we started building our Semaphore model, and we started off focusing mostly on the highly personal, so things like social security number, and thankfully, Semaphore out of the box does a real good job about detecting social security number, credit card numbers, etc. By default. We did, however, build a few concepts of our own for detecting entities like driver's licenses, TINs, and passport numbers. So this here is an example of our PII model in KMM, knowledge model management. And like I said, you can see here, we used, let me blow that up for you. We used pattern wildcards to detect the different patterns from the 50 states for driver's licenses. Some notes about pattern wildcards. You're going to want to turn off stemming, and of course, you're going to want to turn off escaping special characters. So the pair to that concept is this driver's license concept this contains the keywords. So for here, the concept that we looked at previously was our entity. And so this keyword concept is paired with that. And so what we would do then is look for both the keyword and the entity in the document, so we're not finding blank forms. Like social security number might be in there, but if there's no accompanying social security number, then it's not personal. Another example of our PII model, this is medical information. And this is a little different from like the driver's license. This uses alternate labels for our medical information, and its entity is a person. So it's looking for things like clinic record, doctor record, EKG, along with a person entity that's been detected in the document. So, you know, Susan had an EKG, that would hit for personal information. So let's give it a try. So I've got some sample text here. Here you can see I've got a driver's license keyword. I've got a driver's license entity. Same with the social security number. And then down at the bottom, I've got a medical information keyword and a person entity. So with Semaphore, we can drop that into the document analyzer tool and run this against our model. And you can see here that Semaphore has correctly identified the driver's license concept, the medical information concept, and a social security concept as well. So it's not just keyword matching like we were doing before. All right, so the breakdown of PII in our database, thankfully, is relatively small. The vast majority of our documents are not personal or sensitive. We have about 1% of our documents that are personal, 1% that are sensitive, and then we have a tiny portion that is a fourth category called manual review, where it's just too close to call and it needs human eyes. All right, breaking down our personal information a little bit more, you can see that a large portion of our personal information is medical information. But we do have people getting their personal newsletters in their work email boxes and storing that on their computer. And then for sensitive information, we break it down even farther, or we break that down too, and the vast majority of our sensitive information goes to resumes, but we also have payroll information, employee performance reviews, things we don't want the general employees seeing. So to switch a little bit, so we covered PII, but we have recently started classifying our documents for UI enhancement. So this is an example of that. So here is our classification model. It's relatively small right now, but this is our aquaculture concept. And so I've got some more sample text here. This is about Aqua Advantage, which is just like a GMO salmon. I'm gonna go back to Document Analyzer, drop that in, and run it. And you can see that Semaphore has correctly classified it as Aqua Advantage, and I wonder why it's not showing the highlight, but it also got aquaculture. So then in our UI, this enables the users to do search as you type. So we have search as you type concepts that drop down for the user that they can select, and when they do select, it completes their search. They get this concept facet, and then the search results related to aquaculture. So again, we apologize for dumping XML on you, but this is an example of the Semaphore results when you classify a document. We store this within the envelope, the XML properties document that Eric talked about before. You can see here that in this example, this document was classified as not personal or sensitive. And then for our classification model, it identified concepts of canola oil and sunflower oil. Now, another thing that we do is we create a Semaphore history element. This allows us to track the final classification for our PII model over time. We wouldn't want to capture this whole thing every time. That's a lot. So we just classify the final for PII, and we don't even worry about the classification for the documents yet. All right, so some success stories, right? Why did we even do this? One of the bigger ones that we like to highlight is that there was a market study that was believed to be lost. They were asking for it to be repeated because it was needed. One of our BEPs did a quick search on our Orchard application and found it. It was in somebody's email box that had retired and left. That saved us about $200,000. And then we also were able to find analysis information in some handwritten lab notebooks. So these have been scanned in, and we use OCR on those. And they're about 200 pages each, and we've got hundreds of them. But we were able to save $1,000 per sample because of that information that we were able to find in those handwritten lab notebooks. All right, some lessons learned along the way. Big lesson being don't stand in front of a moving train. So we learned that adding a hash to our properties document allowed us to only ingest the most current version of the document, so we're not wasting our resources re-ingesting the same documents over and over and over again. Another one was that to encode special characters within the URIs, especially semicolons, because those will break a Corb script. And not necessarily spaces. We started encoding spaces. I would just stick to special characters. All right, so and then another lesson. So we were not really great about namespaces. You can see here that our envelope has the entity services namespace, but nothing else has one. We have the blank default namespace. But never fear, if you're like us and you're not great at it, you can use the asterisks in the XPath and still find what you need. And I brought it up before, but our Semaphore history element allows us to track the final classification of the PII model over time. This has allowed, we built a template-driven extraction on that, allowed us to reshape this data into rows and columns that we use to build content analytics. So this is one of our graphs for our content analytics, and this tracks the classification, the different classifications of documents over time. So, are not personal or sensitive versus, are sensitive and personal information. This is all done through our Power BI. All right, and then I'm going to turn it over to Eric to talk about our future plans.
Okay. So the next thing that we want to implement, which you've probably heard of, is RAG searching, Retrieval-Augmented Generation, using an LLM. In this case, What happens here is the documents get sort of pre-ingested into MarkLogic. They get classified with Semaphore, and they're also broken down into more manageable chunks that an LLM can use. User winds up asking a query that goes to the application. The query itself is then classified by Semaphore. So I think if you were searching for something like, what do I need to make bread? Semaphore would say, oh, you're looking for the baking ingredients category, and so then it can add that to the query. Then the query is run on MarkLogic to find relevant documents, relevant chunks, which is then sent to the Gen AI to answer the question. And the idea behind this, of course, is that you don't have to train a custom model. You can actually just use an out-of-the-box LLM with your documents. We've done a successful proof of concept on this. We're just kind of waiting for internal approval to go ahead and actually implement the project. Some other things we want to add. We want to add a right-hand sidebar with some additional information exposed by Semaphore. That came from I think a demo that Drew did. And some other UI enhancements. We need to do a better journal article detection for copyright reasons. And then, as I said, we have a fairly complicated security model, and we want to automate that process. Of course, this would not have been possible without a lot of other help. We'd like to thank the ADM team, and of course, the Progress team, without which we wouldn't have been able to even start this project. And of course, also the authors of all of the 5 million documents that we've ingested up to now. So, ask if
All right,
open for questions.
Q&A. Thank you.
Test. Question right here. John.
Thanks. Great presentation. Just curious on the image classification. You had confidence levels for the the snacks and the whatever it happens to be. What level do you deem acceptable, or do you tune that depending on what you're doing?
I think we just we ran a few through, and I think we picked I think it's about 75%, and just said, okay, that's probably good enough.
Maybe a follow-on. Did you think about a different level of classification, which is with a high confidence it's this, with a medium confidence it's that, so that somebody could actually choose to include the results differently? Or maybe the confidence level?
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
We were just trying to create search facets at that point.
Thank you. I was wondering if you could explain a little bit about the Access search interface. Who are the users that are using that? And do you see, the second part of that question is, do you see some different user groups that might potentially be interested in the same kind of search within ADM?
So primarily these are research scientists that we support, but we do have groups from production that we also support. So some of the ingest sources that we get are from our production facilities, and we do have production employees that look at our data as well.
First, thank you so much for sharing your journey and lots of useful details. And definitely, I feel resonate with my experience in terms of how we went through some of the deployment. Couple questions. First, I think you may have answered already. Is you mentioned at the very beginning, at least, a lot of the documents were ingested from personal hard drive, and there could be, I imagine, a lot of duplicate documents. So were you using the document hash strategy to deduplicate?
Yeah, there aren't as many as you would think. I mean, there's like people collaborate on a PDF, and we get a few copies of it, but it's not too many. And so it's probably not enough to worry about deduplication. Also, a document in one ingest source and a document in a different ingest source, they may be the same document, but they have different permissions. So.
Another question is about, I think you mentioned, Eric, you also try now ingesting data from Benchling, and perhaps there are other LIMS or ELN sources. that may not always be document-oriented
Yeah,
data
and benchling
structure.
is not.
Right. So
so
just want to see what's your thought on dealing with those, other varieties.
yeah, so benchling is a cloud sort of electronic lab notebook and LIMS system. And we sort of scan that for entities and experiments, and sort of they have a part of the experiment that's essentially the results. And we grab that and we generate a PDF. I actually forget how we're doing that now. And then that is what actually gets ingested. So we basically create a document because that's what we handle, and then ingest that document.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. My question is kind of related, but I was just curious how the data actually comes into the system. Like, do you use NiFi to just like scan folders, or like do you have APIs that you've built to post documents?
Yeah, and I want to say, do we have? No, we don't. Okay. I thought we had a better shot of our ingest process in our appendix, but we don't. No, so we have a variety of different sources for ingest. We ingest from SharePoint, we ingest from team sites, file system, LIMS systems, things like that. Those are all run by NiFi processors that reach out to those sources, pull the documents in, and run it through our flow.
And so like the ones that are from the file system, we have some sources that are ingested nightly, some weekly, some that are just kind of one and done. And that was why we needed the document hashes, so that we didn't, if we were ingesting a document, a library every week, we weren't ingesting the same 5,000 documents every time just to get the one that had changed.
Right.
And just wondering if you mentioned 800 different file types. Are those read in their native format by Semaphore, or are they transformed before they're read? Both?
No, they're all, we read them in their native format.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the document filter actually handles all of those, but it actually does pretty well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
We do, in certain cases, we do try to exclude file types that are not generally supported, but we found that with a good portion of file types that are not listed as supported file types, it still does a really good job.
Excellent. And just a follow-up question, my earlier question about that PII information and that kind of stuff. You've got resumes and whatnot. Have you considered different products out of this? One for HR, one for finance that might be interested in kind of like, hey, who do I have on the bench and that kind of stuff? I don't know.
We have we work for R&D, so for us we move kind of at a rapid rate. When we first started this journey, there was another team within ADM that was kind of piggybacking off of us and this initiative, and they had dropped out because they just didn't have their ducks really in a row yet. So we're hopeful that other portions of the company will find benefit, but right now we work in R&D, and we're just kind of supporting them.
Yeah.
And I'm sure HR does have their own software packages that they use when they do a search. Like most of our stuff is coming from, like, if a manager is hiring for someone, they'll make a folder on their hard drive, and then the resumes that they get, they'll put in there, and then we get it after the fact, and then we wind up ingesting all of those, even though we don't necessarily want them.
Right. Yeah. Along with their beach photos and stuff. Yeah. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
I just had a follow-up on the duplication question.
Okay.
So if you have these documents where there might have been collaboration, you have, different versions of those, how are you both removing like the duplicate versions, but also making sure that you're having the final one?
Oh, we're not.
Oh, you're not? Okay, so you're just like, they're all coming in. Okay.
They all come in, and it's on the Right now, it's on the users to kind of sort that out.
Okay, so would you use that as like in that flag process that you kind of showed that like this is a duplicate or something, like as an
We
option?
we could add that, and then there's certain other features that we didn't mention here that we were thinking about implementing. It's allowing our users to basically on top of Semaphore, allow our users to tag documents as well with concepts. Kind of complement Semaphore, because it's nice when things do everything automatically, but having that manual backup is always handy. So that's why we still have our flagging feature. That's why we're still planning on implementing like user tagging, but for duplicates, that might be something that we consider in the future if that starts to become a problem.
So that maybe look like them going in and uploading like a final version of like, let's say an article they've written or something like that, or a research paper, and then it would, let's say Semaphore would spit out a bunch of suggested tags, and then they could add or remove or whatever, and then you could use that as like a gold source against anything else that you might come up in crawling hard drives or something.
Yeah, no, if we were to implement this feature, we would probably want something that we could flag as a final version and then be able to flag others as duplicate. But we're not doing any of that right now.
Great, thanks.
I was just curious about sort of the components of your RAG POC that you've put together, like what you've sort of added to what you've built already to implement that. I don't know if you already covered it, but I was just curious about those details.
Do have to very much thank Drew for basically handing us a piece of middleware that did most of it.
Yeah, a lot of credit to Drew.
So, and that was responsible for chunking the documents. We had a custom Semaphore model just for that project. It classified everything there. We ran, they came up with like a list of 10 questions and about sort of, I think about 100 or 200 sample documents to run them against. And we ran each question 3 times. Once with just the LLM with its own training data. Once, which I think we call advanced RAG, where only the documents were classified and used and retrieved, and then what we called analytic RAG, which is where both the question and the documents were classified and retrieved. And in pretty much all cases, that third one, where Semaphore was used more, was the best.
So we used internal sandbox version of ChatGPT-4. So
Last question here before we wrap up.
A question on your the semantic model for PII. How much effort do you put in maintaining that model, if any? And do you have any sort of metrics as to PI information that leaked through?
So we are capturing that, and that's part of our content analytics. Thankfully, it's rather small, and that goes to our super users to review that, and then we also have that flagging feature for our users. If they catch something, they can also flag it. But as far as the effort, we do not do much maintenance or enhancement work on it now, but it was a large effort up front putting that together.
And the business users also, they have access to the model, so if they are able to refine it if they want.
Yeah.
Do you get frequent updates from people that are flagging it that this was this should not have come through? Do you get, is that just tapered down to?
Yeah, not a lot of people use the feature.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not. We're not getting a lot of traffic, people tagging things or flagging things. So yeah.
Jonathan.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.